Salut tout le monde! My name's Alex. I am a French language coach and content creator based in Paris. I've been wanting to do one of these for quite a while now, and what I mean by one of these is a video explaining my parcours, my French language learning journey with you. So let's go back to the beginning, shall we? Because people ask me, they're like, oh, is one of your parents French? Did you go to a French school? There's some story behind it, you know. Who was speaking French to you? So I'm from Washington, D.C. I grew up in the suburbs of D.C. My father is English and my mother is American. So I like to call myself Anglo-American. I grew up with a lot of English influence. I had a lot of au pair. Now I'm doing a Frenchism. Fille au pair. I had a lot of au pairs growing up because there were a lot of kids. I'm one of 5. So we had au pairs, basically live-in babysitters from lots of different countries. But most of them were from England. And ironically, we never had a French au pair. But we had a German au pair. We had a Brazilian au pair. We had a Czech au pair. But anyways, I think a moment that really marked me when I was a kid, that kind of just sparked this curiosity, this insatiable curiosity, was when I was 8 or 9. My German au pair, Christina, she was on the phone with some friend or family back home, and I remember seeing her face light up, and she just looked so happy. She just looked like a different person. She was full of lights, like she was beaming, and I thought, wow, I've never seen this side of her. She was nice and everything, but she was just like really happy. And I remember thinking, wow, like what reality is she experiencing in German? What reality could I be experiencing in another language? And so I started going to the local library and just checking out whatever books or videos, literally any type of medium you can think of that they had, I checked out. And I had stacks of videos and books and like picture books, little cassette tapes, everything. I mean, like it was just like language geek, you know, on steroids. And I was dating several languages. I remember getting those Muzzy VHS tapes for German and French.
Bonjour, je suis le grand monsieur.
Je suis la jeune fille.
Yes, that's French they're speaking. And no, these children aren't French. They're American.
And I remember getting Dutch tapes. And this is before we had, this is before we could, you know, download things easily. You really had to go get the CDs and the VHS tapes. I feel like an old person. I was just dating lots of languages, and French, for one reason or another, just really resonated with me. I loved the sound. I loved the expressiveness. I loved the way that my mouth felt when I spoke it, or when I tried to speak it, when I couldn't speak it, but I just would say a word here and there. I just loved the flow. I just loved the way that it made me feel. It just was like, it clicked. It really clicked. And I just became obsessed with French. And this is before French was available in school. So again, learning informally, dated a bunch of languages, picked French as my boo, as my soulmate. And I just loved it so much. And I remember like bribing my sister to help me record videos. And I still remember the sentence, and it was, alors, nous avons un rendez-vous demain? I think it was that. It was like, we have a meeting tomorrow? Yeah, alors, nous avons un rendez-vous demain? And I remember not even really understanding what I was saying, but I just loved the way it sounded. And the reason I needed her help was because I think it was like a conversation, and I wanted to practice pronunciation. I was like still a kid, and this wasn't for school. This was just because I was like, oh, I'm in love with French. So I was like, when I was 11 or 12, I bought a sticker book, French nouns, and I put the stickers all over the house, kitchen, living room, I mean everywhere. Refrigerator, you open the refrigerator, there's stickers for, you know, le lait, le beurre, anything you could think of. I just had a little sticker with the French noun, And the rest of my family was like, okay, like, we didn't sign up for this. What are you doing? But they went with it. They let me put my stickers everywhere. They let me go sticker crazy. It was a sticker bonanza. Not only did I want to speak French, I wanted to speak so fluently that I wouldn't have an accent, that I would be, considered a French person. I wanted to be French, like I wanted to be a Frenchman. But it's funny now because I remember when I first finally got to take French in 7th grade, a lot of people, were like, language class, da-da-da. But I was just like, oh my God, this is heaven. From then on, my favorite class ever. So yeah, I started falling in love with French when I was 11. And I came across this brochure for student ambassador program. Basically this trip for kids, privileged kids, kids whose parents can shell out thousands and thousands of dollars to go abroad. And this one was to Paris, Normandy, and then up to England, to like Oxford, and then London. And I'm not sure if we did it in that order, but yeah. So the trip was France and England. It started in France and then it went to England. And I just remember, poring over the brochure and seeing the description of, so you'll see the Eiffel Tower and the Notre Dame, and and I just was like this cliche little, giddy Francophile thinking, oh my God, I want to go so badly. Wouldn't that be so amazing? Oh. And it became my obsession to go. And I was 11 years old. No money. My parents were not doing well financially. 4 other siblings, 3 of which still lived with me and were still, growing up. It was almost $4,000. I think it was, I'm not gonna lie. I remember the amount because I was so obsessed with the trip and I needed to raise the money. It was $3,800. And this was in 2004. I just had that number in my head and I was like, I have to find this money. I have to go on this trip. I have to go. I have to. It was just like when you have to do something, vouloir c'est pouvoir. When there's a will, there's a way. You just could not stop me. Like I was unstoppable, or at least my will was unstoppable. Just like my will to learn French. But like before it was available, I sought it out. You make it available if it's not available. You make it relevant if it's not relevant. If you live somewhere that doesn't speak it, you find a way to make it relevant in your daily life. And so anyways, I manifested this trip that no one in my family could afford. I couldn't afford. And part of that, so it started off with babysitting these 2 kids. They were kids of my parents' family friend down the street. And they were brats. I think they've gotten better, but they were difficult. And I would go over there and help them with their homework at least 2 days a week, or if not 3. I think it was 3 days a week. It was pretty often. For me, it was like after school, go babysit them. Like that was like my job. I was a working boy, and I was 11 going on 12. And I saved every cent from that for months, like almost a year. I think it was like 9 months. I was 12, so my parents covered the necessities, groceries, blah, blah, blah. But they were not covering a trip to Europe. And I put it into my little kid banking account because my mom's credit union had that option. So I had this banking account for babies. The deposit for the trip was $500. $500 when you're 12 years old, or 11 years old, going on 12, making like minimum wage down the street, babysitting these brats. That's a lot of money. And of course, I just put that right into the deposit for the trip. And my parents were like, yeah, but we can't afford the rest. I mean, there's like, over $3,000 left to pay for this trip. And I did not know what to do. I used Publisher, like the Microsoft Publisher, the program, and I made these brochures talking about, send Alex to Paris, like kind of like looking for a sponsor. And I remember leaving the brochures at my mom's work, asking for, like patrons, sponsors. I think I like the word patron, like patron of the arts, like patron for this Francophile. And everyone, I think, probably rolled their eyes and was like, okay, like, I think he'll be fine. He doesn't need to go to Paris. He doesn't need to go to France yet. That can wait. He can do it when he's older. I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I was just, I was obsessed, and it was something that I could not let go of. I just needed to go to France. It was just this calling. It was this instinctive, intuitive, whatever the word you want, calling to go to France. I was being called, I was being summoned, and I wasn't even sure why, but I had to go.
I absolutely had to go.
And so I ended up having a patron at the last second, when I least expected it. My patron, my surprise patron, who paid for the rest of the trip, was my great aunt Beta. And she came up to me at this family gathering. It was after I had just found out that she paid for the rest of the trip, and I just could not believe it. I was just like so happy. I was ecstatic. And I still remember her words exactly. She said, "You're gonna love London, but Paris." It was just like this schoolgirl, just so full of dreams. I think what connected us was our love for travel. Yeah, but I just really, really had this travel bug. That's what she called it. And I think she could tell already that Paris was going to be a soulmate city. Going to Paris when I was 12, because of my Aunt Beta, who really saw the value in me going at that age. Having her believe in me like that, and seeing the determination that I had to go, and investing in me, and just, funding most of the trip, meant the world to me. It was just such a wonderful experience for me to be able to go at that age and just really cement my love for French and for France and the French-speaking world. So I'm really grateful to my Aunt Beta for sending me there. And I'll never forget the flight going there to Charles de Gaulle. Don't know how to explain the feeling. It's just, you are in heaven. Like you feel like life could not be any better. Your dream is coming true. And especially for the first time, you've never been there. They speak a different language that you're absolutely enamored with, that you're fascinated by. It's different culture, a place that makes you dream. It was just the most incredible feeling. We took a red-eye flight, and I remember arriving there in the morning. My ears were popping. I had never taken an international flight, and I was just so happy I could cry. J'étais vraiment, vraiment heureux. I remember memorizing how to say, où sont les toilettes? Where are the toilets? And when I said it out loud, it just seemed like it was a different person. Like I felt like I wasn't, in a way, I wasn't being me when I was saying it, and I felt awkward, but I was also excited to use it in the real world, in practice. And I remember saying, où sont les toilettes? To a woman at the hotel in Normandy we stayed at, and she responded to me saying where the toilets were. And I remember looking at her and being like, "Oh, merci," like, probably with more of an accent though. And I had no idea what she said. She just pointed, in a direction. And I remember being so proud of myself for saying it, but also reality hit, and I didn't know what the hell she was saying. So yeah, I just kind of went the way she pointed, and then I didn't even go to the bathroom. I didn't find the bathroom. I didn't find the toilet. Nope, never found the toilet. During the earlier years of my French language learning journey, it was really frustrating because I didn't have anyone to practice with. I didn't have any French friends, no French classmates or French-speaking classmates. I just didn't know anybody who spoke French at all, because I didn't have any way to practice it or gauge my progress except for, French class. And I just really wanted someone to be able to use it with in real life. And so when I was 16, I had been learning French for 4 years at that point? 4 or 5 years? My sister had a baby. And guess what? Now I had someone to practice my French with. When my mom moved away, I still shared a house with my sister for several years. and I helped raise my niece until she was about 4 or 5. And I only spoke French to her. Only French. Only French. It was so amazing because I had enough French at that point. I had enough of a base that I was pretty comfortable with the basics, and and even a little more than basics for sure. Rusty, but still pretty decent. But I just didn't have anyone to talk to. In the beginning, she was, obviously not responding. But then once she started to get, to the age where you utter your first words, she would respond, and she would respond in French, and it was the cutest thing in the world. Every day, I'd go with my sister to pick her up from daycare, and I spoke to her so much.
Qu'est-ce que le singe dit? Qu'est-ce que le chien dit? Qu'est-ce que le chat dit? Qu'est-ce que le chat dit? J'en ai assez.
And I remember her third word was cœur. Cœur. How cute is that? And I remember she'd say, cœur. I mean, luckily my sister had a baby. It was really fun to see just how much a child can pick up a second language when you live somewhere totally English speaking. It was just English only, English everything, which, is the case in the English speaking world oftentimes. English is the only language that anyone cares about. They don't have as much curiosity to learn other languages, which is a shame. It's a big shame. It was just so rewarding to have my niece understanding and speaking French and calling me Oncle Alex. She actually just came to visit me in Paris for the first time, and she's 12 now. And how cool is that? She came to Paris for the first time when she was 12. Or she is 12. I went to Paris for the first time when I was 12, and it comes full circle, and it was beautiful to share Paris, to share France with her, to share French with her. When I was 18, I went to visit family in England, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and I ended up at the last minute squeezing together just enough to go to Paris for my birthday, for my 18th birthday, and that was so amazing. I stayed with my sister's close friend who is French, Chloe, and we had a really nice time. She was a lot older than me. I was 18. She was like about 30, early 30s. So it was pretty nice of her to host someone she didn't even know, just because I was her friend's little brother. And I remember sitting on the metro with her, and I was saying, and she said, If you want to sound French, you say, She taught me putain very early on. I learned putain. And she took me to a party where I met a lot of her friends. It was a really cool experience, just getting to meet just real French people, because I never really got to. And then when I came back from France, I met this girl on the bus right outside of DC in Maryland named Yasmine. And Yasmine is French. I don't even know how we started talking, but we just started, chatting on the bus, and we ended up bonding over our love of of each other's languages and cultures. And she told me, she said, if you come to Paris, let me know. And I did. I ended up going to Paris like 6 months later. Yasmine, the sweet girl that she is, hosted me in her 20 mètres carrés studio in Paris. And it was me, Yasmine, and Yasmine's girlfriend at the time. And we had so much fun. It was this little bohemian studio apartment at Place de Clichy. Really small. We were kind of walking on top of each other, but it was a great time. And something I'll never forget, and I thank Yasmine for, is how strict she was with French. First of all, so we only spoke French with each other, and whenever I made a mistake, I said, Yasmine, I definitely, I want you to correct me when I make a mistake. And at the time, I thought my French was great, that I spoke wonderfully, but actually, I was in for a rude awakening. She really did correct me whenever I made a mistake, and oh my gosh, I was being corrected like every other word. It was kind of overwhelming, which in French there's no word for overwhelming because people don't get overwhelmed. I guess they just handle the situation. Have some wine, just go have a cigarette, But so yeah, it was a bit overwhelming, accablant. Mais c'était un peu, c'était intense parce que j'avais pas l'habitude de parler français tous les jours. Et avec Yasmine, c'était vraiment tout le temps quand je me trompais. Si je me trompais, elle me disait non, faut pas dire ça, c'est ça en fait. Ou non, en fait, non, c'est pas le bonbon. Et that happened a lot. Like, I thought I was so fluent, because I had studied French for several years, but I had a long way to go. So yeah, spending a few months in Paris, the summer of 2012 in Paris, was really, really wonderful because I just got to be fully immersed in French, and with like-minded, French people who were, my age and were passionate about language learning, just like I was, and were not afraid to correct me either. That's really important. You need to seek out people who are as enthusiastic as you and who are willing to correct you. And correcting people can be kind of tiring, but if you're enthusiastic enough, if you love the language, then it's fine. It's worth it. I felt like there was this breakthrough, right? There was a breakthrough of like maybe 2 weeks of being with Yasmine, where she corrected me all the time, all day, every day. And after about 2 weeks, my French was progressed so much more than I could have imagined. It was just like, wow. And then flash forward a few years later, I just started Alex Teaches French on Instagram, and within a few months of starting Alex Teaches French, I met my boyfriend Jeffrey in the East Village, outside of my friend Alan Cummings' bar, Club Cumming, which I did a video on with him. You can check it out. Ça va? Pas mal. Et toi? Oui, ça va bien.
Bienvenue à quelques milles.
And it all comes full circle. A couple years later, we're still together, and we just decided to move to France. So there's my French life, which has just kind of fallen into place. When I think about 11-year-old me, 12-year-old me who just wanted to be fluent so badly, wanted to speak French fluently more than anything in the world, and I just thought that it was this distant dream. Like I did not know if it could ever happen. It just seemed endless. What would I say to him? I would say, good job on being persistent and making French relevant in your life, even when you lived in a place where it was irrelevant. Good job on doing things like that. Speaking French to your niece. I would speak to myself. I would record, little tapes, or I'd speak to my sister. I'd bribe her some, brownies or something, and we did the video together. So making the language relevant in your daily life, even if it seems like it's the last thing that would be relevant wherever you may come from. Finding ways to use it, even if you don't have anyone to use it with. Stickers, talking to yourself, recording yourself, listening to French music. What I did was I was such a geek. I would listen to French music and write down the lyrics to some of them, and I would practice it to myself, like woo. Just making it relevant in your daily life through things like that. When people ask, how can I be fluent? How can I speak as well as you? Or sometimes, I have had French friends or French acquaintances ask me, how can I speak English as well as you speak French? I would love to, speak fluently. Not saying my French is parfait. It is not, it is never, my French is not perfect, my English is not perfect, but I own it, I own my mistakes. I just keep progressing with enthusiasm. And that's what I keep saying, just be enthusiastic. It's a lifelong hobby, and it's fun to keep exploring it, it's fun to keep finding out that there's more that you actually didn't know. It's a constant, treasure trove of Linguistic beauty. Don't always try to translate English, French, English, French, English, French, English, French. Like I used to think être. I used to always think, oh, to be. It is to be. Like everything is, it has to be exactly, you know, this translation from English. Like, and I would just say, this is the exact equivalent. So don't get too frustrated with that. There isn't always a direct translation into English, you know, from French. So I think the sooner you accept that, the easier it is to progress with French. When you start thinking in French more and more and more, and rather than thinking English, French, translating everything from English to French, it kind of delays you. So it's better to, I mean, of course in the beginning, since it's, you know, you're still learning the language, it's easier said than done, but the more you can do that, the more you start doing that, you know, like putting stickers on everything with the French word, bring French to life, bring it, you know, alive in your daily life. And just not being afraid of making mistakes or sounding stupid, because you don't sound stupid. Not having that that stubbornness to always seem perfect. Just not being afraid of sounding silly. Like, it's fun to play with language. It's fun to play with your vocal cords. It's fun to just play with the sounds that your mouth is capable of making. And there's lots of sounds in you know, in French class, and I remember in middle school, in high school especially, a lot of people would not progress because they were afraid of making a strange sound or reproducing the sound incorrectly. And I just had a ball with it. I had a blast. Like, I would just, you know, screw up and keep going. And I remember one time in 7th grade, my French teacher came up to me and she said, what is the date? And it was like it was the beginning of the school year. And I didn't know how to pronounce August, which is août. And I said, le 28, ow? And I just looked at her and I smiled. I said, ow? And she looked at me and she said, ow? She was just like, no. But she appreciated my initiative. Like, I mean, I still, well, she's the one who asked me, actually. I guess it wasn't really initiative. It was just responding to her. But still, my effort, at least I tried, and I failed, but I tried. And it's just things like that. I just, every time something like that would happen, I would just laugh at myself. I would just kind of be like, okay, yeah, okay, fine. You know, I screwed up. You just can't be afraid of making mistakes in front of people. Maybe in front of people you want to impress. Just keep going. Just keep making tons of mistakes. It's worth it, and it's fun. It's funny, even if sometimes it can be a little embarrassing or uncomfortable. But it's just have fun with it. Just get dirty. Just play around with it. It's a living language, a language that you, perhaps if you're watching, that you're in love with, just like I am. So just keep going and keep messing up and just make it a lifelong hobby, because that's really the way that you will be a fluent speaker. And I promise, if you keep that enthusiasm and openness to making mistakes and maybe looking silly in front of someone, you can speak just as well as I do one day. Et voilà! That is how I learned French and why I love the language so much. That is my French story. Mon parcours. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm doing this YouTuber thing. Je fais ça avec les doigts. I'm more of an Instagrammer, but transitioning to YouTube. So I would appreciate any support and love. J'espère que vous passez une très belle journée. Comme moi, à la campagne. I'm in Gascony, in the French countryside, if you were wondering. Thank you guys so much. Bonne journée. Bisous. Lots of love.